welcome to my YouTube video. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to work tidy ribbing in the round. In this little sample I started out with stockinette stitch. For example, this could be the cuff of a sleeve. It's a small diameter knitting in the round, and on this sleeve we want to do some knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. So I'm using the same size needle that I used for the stockinette. I did not go down in needle size, and I did not reduce the number of stitches right before the ribbing, as you see in many patterns. The first inch or so of the ribbing I just worked with standard knitting, knit 2 purl 2, and you can see it's a little bit fluffy. It almost wants to be wider than the stockinette. The second half I worked with my tidy ribbing techniques, which I'm going to demonstrate in this video, and you can see that that pulls in a lot more. Same needle, same yarn, same knitter, but it makes a big difference in your stitch gauge, what I'm going to show you. I have another video called Tidy Knitting, excuse me, I got tongue-tied there, Tidy Ribbing Worked Flat, and in that video I show you how to work knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. For example, this is knit 2 purl 2 ribbing in the standard technique and not bound off in pattern. This is the same number of stitches worked on the same needle with the tidy techniques that I'm going to show you in this video, and bound off in pattern. So when we're done here, yes, you want to bind off in pattern. You'll knit over the knits and purl over the purls. Same thing. It works for knit 1 purl 1 ribbing. This is without employing the tidy techniques, not binding off in the round. You can see how much more the ribbing pulls in by applying the techniques I'm going to show in this video. In this video, which I'll link up here in the corner, is for worked flat. The current video is for working in the round, so the technique is slightly different. And also I tried 2 different techniques on this. On this side, where it's the red cable, I used tightening the yarn between the knit and the purl. On this side, which is the light blue cable, I used working the purl, the first purl, wrapping the yarn in the opposite direction. So I'll show you both these techniques, and then we'll actually take it off the needle and take a look at it, because I think when it's off the cable, that's when we'll really see the true difference between these. So I'm going to be showing you 2 different techniques for making tidy ribbing in the round. And we're going to start out by using the technique of tightening the yarn, the working yarn, between a knit and a purl. You only do this between a knit and a purl, not between a purl and a knit, only between a knit and a purl. So we're going to knit the first 2 stitches. Then we bring the yarn forward to purl. I put the tip of my right needle into the next stitch, and then watch this second knit stitch. Watch it. Do you see the yarn come around there? That's tightening it. And I hold it tight through the full making of the first purl stitch. Second purl stitch, normal tension. First knit, normal tension. Second knit, normal tension. Bring the yarn forward, put the needle into the next stitch like you're going to purl, tighten the working yarn on that knit stitch, follow through on the purl with this tension tight, release the tension. Now let me show you how to do this throwing. We knit the knit, knit the knit, bring the yarn forward, put the right needle into the next stitch, pull the yarn, follow through with the stitch, holding it tight, work the next purl in the normal fashion. I'll do it once more. So you only do this trick when you bring the yarn forward to purl, and that you can do this with knit 1 purl 1 ribbing, the edge of cables, seed stitch. Anytime you bring the yarn forward between a knit and a purl, you're going to pull that yarn, follow through with the purl, holding the yarn tight, and then work the second purl in the normal fashion. So that's the technique of tightening the yarn between the knit and the purl. Every time you bring the yarn forward to make a purl, that's when you're going to do this tightening technique. Now on the other needle, I used a completely different technique. Let's switch around to that needle. Notice I'm using 2 circulars to work in the round. You can do this on magic loop, DPNs, whatever you want. Small circulars. I prefer 2 24-inch circulars for working small diameter in the round, but it's personal preference. So now we're going to work the other method. So we make the first 2 knits, we bring the yarn forward, and I already worked this going the wrong way. So now we see we have a reverse stitch mount. So we have to work it through the back, and I'm wrapping the yarn clockwise around the needle to make the stitch. Normally when you go around the needle you go counterclockwise. So if you point the needle up towards your nose and look at it, you're going around the needle counterclockwise. That's to make a normal stitch. If you want to make a reverse stitch mount, you go clockwise. But what happens is then that stitch is sitting on the needle with the forward leg on the back. So in order to work it, you have to bring the right needle up through the back leg. Then we're going to wrap the yarn clockwise, take it down, and then a normal counterclockwise purl. And this shortens the space between this knit and this purl and will absorb the extra yarn that normally would make those big stitches. This is what we're making the stitches smaller. Normal. Now let's do this throwing. Come up through, oh, we got to bring the yarn forward. Come up through the back loop, take the yarn clockwise around, make the stitch, then a normal purl. I got to bring the yarn to the right when I'm doing that. And then we're going to knit, knit, bring the yarn forward, come through the back leg, clockwise around the needle, then a normal purl. Now also notice that I work on the tips of my needles. That makes a huge difference in your overall tension and will also help with the tidy ribbing. I keep the stitches up close to the points. Okay, so now let's take this off the needles and just take a look at it naked with no needles. And of course when you bind this off, you want to bind it off in pattern. You're going to knit the knits and purl the purls. So here we have the swatch off the needles, and you can see that the first inch that I did does flare out a little bit, and that the second inch where I used the compensating techniques, the tidying up techniques, that it does pull the fabric in. We can take a closer look at these stitches and see the difference in the size. See these stitches here and how they're smaller up here. All the columns are, and that's what creates the pulling in here. Let's look at this is the side where I pulled the yarn between the knit and the purl. This is the side where I knit the purl through the back loop and then wrapped the yarn in the opposite direction. It also looks very, very nice. I actually think this side looks better, but it is personal preference. I had some people comment on this that in the second half where I worked the this stitch through the purl through the back loop and wrapped it clockwise rather than counterclockwise, that I could have just done combination knitting, but that would have required working both purls the same, counterclockwise and purling them through the back loop, and in that counteracts the effect. I like that effect. If you enjoy my videos, be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you could give me 2, you would. Give me a thumbs up. Share my videos with your friends. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. This video is in conjunction with a knit-along tutorial that I have on Ravelry. It's called It Takes a Guild Cardigan Tutorial. This is just one small part of it, and you can join us in there. The information will be down in the description on how to get into that. I'll also link the other video that I talked about with the knitting, working the ribbing flat. Here's our ribbing flat. And we'll see you next time. Happy knitting!